Hello and welcome to our webinar on harnessing AI to maximize innovation and minimize app sprawl. In the spirit of reconciliation, Canva acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. I'm Rachel, your host and B2B content specialist at Canva. And for those new to us, Canva is a user-friendly visual communication tool that empowers everyone, including enterprises, to create and collaborate seamlessly. We'll share a link in the chat to find out more. Now, during this session, we'll be discussing the integration of AI and the management of increasing app growth in organizations. Today's business environment presents unique challenges for CIOs with a surge in app usage and AI tool adoption post-COVID. Canva recently commissioned Harris Poll to survey more than 1,300 CIOs to uncover the challenges they face in their organizations daily. How many new apps do you think organizations will adopt in 2024? Well, the report reveals that 71% of CIOs expect 30 to 60 new apps in their organizations during 2024, which is a significant jump from the averages reported in 2022 of 20 to 40 apps. This rapid expansion has resulted in tech fatigue and underused software, leading to a call for strategic and sustainable innovation. Adding to the challenge, nearly 2/3 indicated that they don't have enough IT staff to train employees on safe and proper use. If you're interested to read the full Canva CIO report, the link is also in the chat. We have a fantastic panel of industry experts here with us today to delve into these challenges and opportunities, particularly when it comes to AI innovation in the workplace. Now, without further ado, let's meet our panelists. We have Natalie Piucco, the Chief Technologist at Google Cloud Australia, Tim Sheedy, VP, Research and Principal Advisor at Ecosystem, and Robert Kawalsky, Head of Product at Canva. Thank you all for being here today. Why don't we go around and share a little bit with those online about your role and maybe your favorite type of AI tool currently? Let's start with Natalie.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Pico. I am Google Cloud's Born in the Cloud Chief Technologist, and I work in Google's engineering organization. And for almost over a decade, I've helped hundreds of businesses and forward-thinking leaders all over the world build with Google's emerging technology. And right now, it's very exciting. I'm kind of at the epicenter of how we are bringing AI to the world. And I get to see a real spectrum of how people are building AI products for millions of users. So working very closely with Canva and the team to build AI magic into the design experience, very fast-growing digital natives. Then I get to work with large banks who are injecting AI in a really highly regulated space. And then I sit on the board of Capital G, Google's investment fund. So I get to kind of see where the flow of capital is going or isn't going towards very fast-growing AI apps. So hopefully I get to share some of that kind of broad spectrum of what I'm seeing across the market and how different leaders are building with AI technology from the view of a technologist today. And my favorite AI app, I would say at the moment, is the annotation feature on Google Hangouts, because at the end of the meetings, it gets, my whole meetings are annotated into notes, so I don't have to sit here and make notes at the end. I absolutely love that. Summarizing all my notes makes meetings just that little bit easier.
Amazing. Thank you, Natalie. And Tim?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Tim Sheedy. I'm the head of research at Ecosystem. We're a tech research firm headquartered out of Singapore. My job really is to help CIOs and technology leaders use technology to drive better business and customer outcomes. I'm a bit of a career analyst. I've been at Forrester, at IDC for many years, and Ecosystem for the last 7 or 8 years. So in terms of my favorite AI tools, I'm a bit of a voracious user of many of the Gen AI tools in particular. So my favorites vary from week to week as something new comes up and I go, wow, that's really cool. That's something that'll help me do my job better, help my clients do their job more effectively. Well, to be honest, when I was first invited onto this webinar, I had a look at Canva's tools and went, geez, there's some really cool things in that magic suite that you're doing with AI that I can just see would help me, would help Canva clients do their jobs more effectively. And that's ultimately what it's about. It's about taking the boring bits out of the knowledge worker's job and, helping us deliver value to our clients faster. And so, that's the opportunity for AI today.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Robert.
Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, great to be here. I'm Rob. I'm head of product here at Canva. So I oversee our product direction across the whole business, working really closely with our founders and all our teams on where we want to take the product in the long term, but also getting right down into the pixels. We really believe that to have a great product, it needs to be cohesive and integrated, and that's what we've been striving to do in the visual communication space. In terms of my favorite AI tool, a bit like Tim, there's just this flurry of activity in the space, and it's really exciting to try and experiment with all of them. I'm constantly doing that. If I had to pick one though, one I feel myself coming back to really often is Magic Write, which is a LLM-based writing tool integrated into Canva, so that when you're preparing a document or a presentation or any visual communication within Canva, right there within the flow, you can get writing assistance, whether it's expanding or summarizing or generating ideas. So I'm finding that idea of having AI integrated into your flow where you're doing the work be really powerful.
Robert, Tim, Natalie, welcome and thank you so much for your intro. We're really excited to chat with you today, and also welcome to everyone joining us online. So panel, let's dive right in, shall we? So to start things off, Tim, can you set the scene for us? What are you hearing from CIOs about AI in the enterprise, and what does the market forecast look like?
Sort of stepping back from AI to begin with, I'm just going to talk more generally about the challenges that CIOs have today, and that's security, data governance, using data more effectively within their business, delivering applications and business services and digital services faster to the customers, doing this in a relatively cost pressure environment. There's a significant focus on reducing tech debt. I think a lot of organizations over COVID picked up a lot of tech debt, and that puts us in this funny stage at the moment that it is interesting that there's so many new applications potentially coming into our businesses at a time when we're trying to consolidate applications too. But in terms of relation to AI, I think every CIO that I speak to is excited by the opportunity of AI. Most of the organizations are embracing it. I've spoken to organizations across North America and Europe that are already spending 30% of their IT budget on AI-related services, applications, systems, hardware solutions, cloud, etc. So that's 30% already, right? And they're really advanced users of AI. But what I'm beginning to see is that AI is very quickly going to become the fastest growing technology that we've ever seen. And look, I've been a technology analyst for nearly 30 years now. Every couple of years, I sort of feel like I'm saying, and this is the fastest growing technology we've ever seen. AI, I think, is going to trump everything. I would expect that by 2030, every organization listening to this webinar will be spending probably at least half of your IT budget on AI-related capabilities and services. So AI is really going to start to dominate the agenda. It already is in some organizations, but it's going to grow much faster than you think it's going to grow within your business.
Wow. And Natalie or Rob, what are you hearing from your customers?
Yeah, I would say we're still fairly early in the adoption cycle, and we've only really just kind of begun to see the impacts and applications of this new technology, which is incredible. I think if you look at how any major new technology gets introduced to a market, it kind of has a very similar pattern, and it's this kind of divergent convergent pattern. So divergent, you have lots of different applications springing up really quickly, and then eventually it converges to have a few major key players. I think we're very much in the market cycle of this divergence still. It's the same that we saw when the App Store, the Play Store came out. It looks very different now than it did kind of 5 years ago. We're also seeing the same with coding languages. There used to be quite a few, and now it's down to a couple of key players. I think the market will follow along on that cycle. So although the technology might be brand new, we've kind of seen some of this before, and there's some patterns that we can definitely learn from. Google's view would be that everybody in some capacity is going to use AI in their everyday life, and you probably already are. Secondly, there's a real theme towards multimodal models, so large models that will do multiple different things and solve multiple different problems. But then also on the other end of the spectrum, what will definitely start to emerge is very specific niche models that are there to solve industry problems. So very focused on healthcare or security or retail, etc. And then finally, we're definitely seeing a trend towards AI as a platform, particularly in the enterprise. So having that secure platform that has, the right data, the right permissions for your team to be able to experiment, test, then deploy. I still think there's also some other really big major questions that a lot of CIOs are still asking. How much is this going to cost? How do I determine the return on investment? Where do I make strategic investments? What roles do I need to hire for? So there's definitely some big questions to be asked. But I know that in the CIO report, what I found really interesting was that out of the 1,300 or so CIOs that were interviewed, 94%, so nearly all of them, said they are planning to significantly increase their AI budgets this year. So I think it goes to show that although there are lots of big questions still left to be asked about AI in the enterprise, this technology is too important to ignore.
And Rob, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, all of that really reflects what we're seeing as well. I think one of the things we've seen is there is this app sprawl, and people have there's a huge amount of exploration and experimentation with apps and different tools. One of the interesting trends we've started to see recently is a focus on trying to find AI capabilities that are what I would describe as workhorses rather than toys. So, I think there's a lot of excitement around what's possible for the first time. But we are starting to see people really trying to connect what's possible with actual work and the jobs to be done that they're trying to do within their businesses. Also, we're seeing AI very much applied both in terms of driving efficiencies within businesses, but also giving people new capabilities. So, in our space, in visual communication, it's really incredible and inspiring to see how people are using AI to ideate throughout the creative process as a sort of companion collaborator. And that's happening in every function and throughout workflows that people are performing. So new capabilities and driving efficiencies are two big trends, but really looking to use AI in a way that complements their work beyond just sort of that experimentation and playing around, because it's also so new and exciting.
Thank you so much for those insights. Now, as we mentioned at the start, the CIO report states that 71% of CIOs project that their organizations will adopt up to 60 new applications this year. Now, for the people in the chat, I'm curious to know, do you feel your organization uses too many applications? And now it's really clear that IT leaders are under pressure to innovate, but they must do so strategically and sustainably while navigating a saturated AI market. Panel, how do you balance the need to innovate with AI without contributing to this issue of app sprawl?
I'll jump in here to start. First of all, it's worth understanding that your existing suppliers are integrating AI into their suites and their capabilities and their platforms already. But I completely understand this challenge, though, around the 60 new applications. As a technology analyst, probably every day I have one or two new or emerging AI vendors reaching out to me, telling me how cool their capability is. And they're often really single function capabilities. As Rob alluded to, some of them are a bit sort of toy-like in the way that they work. And if they're reaching out to me, they've probably already reached out to you too, or it's not that long before they do actually reach out to you. So the thing is that a lot of these features and functions are already going to be integrated into your existing applications, right? The challenge that we have, though, is that finding out about it, right? When, someone like Canva or someone else puts out some new features and functions, there's probably some AI in there, and there's probably a whole bunch of other non-AI capabilities in there too. So you need to work with your partners, you need to work with your vendors to understand, can this do this today? How can this help me do something different? And what do I need to do differently to take advantage of this? Because many of the Gen AI capabilities in particular are related to people, your knowledge workers, actually doing something different. Right. So you need to understand what that different thing is. You need to train them on that, and you need to make that a standard practice within your business. Well, if you can do it within your existing platforms, it's going to be a lot easier than, buying and integrating and securing, et cetera, a new platform that you have. But, as I said, there are a whole new bunch of capabilities coming out there. We need to evaluate them. They're all going to make our jobs easier and better and more fun and more rewarding. Most of them are going to drive better customer and business outcomes. It's about getting them working and getting them working quickly within your business.
And to add to that, I think, this is not a new problem necessarily for the CIO. I think what has changed, though, is just how quickly this new technology is being developed. And I mean, it's as simple now as your engineering talent or your business leads taking out a credit card and swiping a credit card online. And now there's this new technology in the business, or like you said, it's either already integrated into the applications that you're using. I think some really practical steps that I've been working with a lot of leaders to think about, firstly, is to really have empathy and like a real listening session with your teams on what technology are they using today, because it's likely that you're already using this great technology and it does have some application in the business. So have a group of folks inside the IT team work closely with the business and understand what's been used today, what's working really well. I've even seen people put specific roles around this, so like a product manager type role in technology that proactively works with the business to understand what's needed and what's already there. And then secondly, look at the function of how new technology comes into the business. It's very likely that you already have a system of some kind where new technology comes in and out. So having someone in your team kind of review how that technology comes in. And I'm saying to leaders is focus on capabilities. So AI is not just a tool, it's a set of functionality. So I'm working with a large global media organization right now, and we're saying, what are the top 3 or 4 functionalities or capabilities that your business needs? Is it personalization? Is it summarization? Is it discovery? So focusing on those top kind of themes around capabilities, and then looking at how you're streamlining AI technology around that. And then finally, I think this is the biggest misconception. A lot of businesses come to me and say, Natalie, who should be owning AI? I personally I don't believe any particular business unit should be owning AI. I think the fastest moving AI technology companies I've worked with, including Canva, AI becomes the responsibility of everybody. Everybody's upskilled, everyone's educated to see the opportunity or in some way have a decentralized function to, again, manage AI appropriately. So that's kind of what I'm seeing as 3 or 4 different ways that business leaders can really practically manage the AI sprawl.
Totally. I love that idea of those themes and think about those capabilities. It reflects how we internally, we think about it a lot, is centering around goals. Like, it sounds really obvious, but it's easy to sort of fall into the trap of like starting with the technology and then figuring out how it fits into your business rather than deciding what goals you're actually trying to accomplish and finding the technology that's best suited to them. I would also say I completely agree that the training and the change management components are absolutely critical when thinking about integrating these tools. But I would also say that those are not uniform across different technology and different tools. What we find is that simple products require less of both. They're easier to onboard employees into, and they're easier to train your teams to take on. Delightful products as well. Employees are much more forthcoming when tools are delightful to use and easy to use. So I think really thinking about the capabilities is key, but then going that one step further and actually understanding how have those capabilities been implemented for the end user who's actually going to use them, because they make that entire journey of actually enabling your organization many, many, many times easier.
Look, and it's how the supplier, like Canva, actually surface those features within their their applications and platforms too, right? The better they do at that, the easier it is for people to learn how to use them and deploy them.
Yeah, absolutely. And making them integrated, I think we're in this interesting phase where all these new AI-enabled capabilities became possible. And we've seen many vendors, you sort of the natural thing to do is to scramble and tack things on just to have that capability. It takes a different degree of effort to kind of really integrate it into existing workflows, make it feel like a natural native part of an experience. And I think, us and others are going through that phase. But I couldn't agree more. It's absolutely key to make it feel incredibly native as you're using the tool.
For those who aren't yet convinced of the potential of AI, what do you think is holding back adoption?
I'm not 100% convinced that people aren't convinced, to be honest. Most tech leaders that I speak to are completely convinced that this is a very transformative technology and they need to quickly upskill themselves. They need to educate their boards. They need to be reporting on the technology. But there are a couple of key concerns or focuses that I'm trying to help leaders think about. The first is this idea of scrapping a multi-year AI strategy. I think it's incredibly important that you allocate some senior leaders in the organization to think about an AI strategy, and there are many different proven frameworks to do that. But I think it's almost impossible to think about having a kind of 5-year technology roadmap like we used to, because AI is moving so quickly. And I'm saying that a lot of leaders right now have FNV, which is the fear of next version. I think if you kind of wait around for the next version of AI technology to come out, you'll be simply waiting too long. So I think perfection will be the biggest enemy right now, particularly if you're in a business where you want to build a very differentiated experience. The other thing that I think is holding a lot of businesses back that I'm exposed to is that last year, I think a lot of leaders were very focused on the external use cases. So how can we use AI to have dramatic impact on a particular customer experience? That can come with a certain amount of risk taking, particularly if you're a CIO in, say, a regulated industry. I'm advising to leaders to say, you can start off with an internal use case too. It doesn't have to be externally facing. You can look inside your business and say, where are the repeated decisions at scale? And that can be an incredible starting point to start with an internal process and kind of map out all the different people, resources that you need, data resources that you need, security resources, etc., and have that potentially support with the adoption journey. And then the final question that I believe are holding a lot of different teams back that I'm working with is the skill set. And there was a really interesting report that recently just came out in Australia from the CSIRO, and it said that 1/3 of Australian businesses will need 6 or more AI partners for an AI solution or product to be successful. 6 or more. That's what the research is showing. So I think it's asking the question of who's advising you, who are you reaching out to either build, borrow, or buy capabilities to help you do that? Because right now we are in a war for talent. Although we are seeing that Gen Z are the fastest users of this particular technology, a lot of businesses still need a lot of help to at least get that first confidence around that first use case to really start that flow of innovation in the business. So definitely looking at, what partners you're working with as well.
And I'll add to that. What I see holding organizations back is two other factors too. And I'm going to, one is just, we're just so busy, right? I speak to so many, senior executives in organizations, and I ask them, and they've been given some sort of AI tool for their teams to use. And I say, how's the adoption going? And they go, well, it's not really, because everyone's just so busy doing their job. It's like, we're so busy, swimming against the tide that we don't actually have the time to learn the tools that are going to help us to, swim faster, basically, right? So, taking that little time out of your day to do that bit of learning, doing some different sorts of learning, perhaps versus your traditional classroom training, might be another way of sort of helping your teams understand the opportunities. The other thing I see holding organizations back, which is an interesting one, because back in 2022, I'd see organizations implementing, an example is conversational AI or conversational intelligence in contact centers, which is a really cool tech. If you're not doing it and you have a contact center, just do it. It's that simple. It's awesome. It's one of the best sort of what I call traditional AI tools out there, meaning it's more machine learning style AI than Gen AI. But then 2023 came around and Gen AI came out and everyone started talking about the risks of AI, right? And a contact center person said, oh, we want to switch on conversational AI. And suddenly someone in the organization heard AI and they sent the legal team and they sent the regulatory team and they sent the security team, et cetera. And they sort of flooded this decision. Sometimes this decision was quite literally switching on a function in an application that made that application more intelligent. But they sent a team in to check that they weren't breaking any privacy laws or, that it wasn't putting the organization at risk of security, et cetera. So I see, this sort of FUD piece, the fear, uncertainty, doubt, sort of making boards of directors and senior management teams a little more concerned about AI decisions and wanting more oversight on them, when the reality is, as Natalie said, there's a million internal use cases that you can do today that would just make your organization so much better and faster and more productive.
Yeah, definitely. Just to add to that, we're seeing particularly Google that becoming a constant topic of conversation, particularly when it comes to copyright and data protection when using large language models. And this is something that you're seeing, large technology vendors like Google, for example, really lean into providing indemnification. So giving organizations the confidence that they need to be able to use this new emerging technology and allowing them to be protected, particularly when it comes to using large language models in the creative industry. So those, I think, are important questions to ask. And you are seeing the tech industry start to respond with certain policies to support tech leaders to be able to make those decisions and use that technology in a safe way.
Yeah, absolutely. We so seeing the same trends, and I think what we found is that people don't need to be convinced. They just need to work out how to make it happen. And that trust and safety piece is really critical, and rightfully so. I mean, these are new capabilities, and in some ways, the first time in a long time where the capabilities have, in many ways, outstripped what people know they want to do with them, which is like a really unique characteristic, I think, of this wave of AI. But I completely agree on that trust and safety side. I mean, we've done it as well for our enterprise customers. We launched a program called Canva Shield, and it really reflected the multifaceted nature of the trust and safety concerns. So, we cover things like indemnification, but also ensuring that we have a commitment to creators. So if creators are contributing their IP and their creative assets into models, that they're being compensated for that. Also giving control to enterprises so that they can decide at a granular level which functionality they're comfortable with their employees using and which they aren't, and being able to sort of stage that out so that, it's not an all or nothing proposition. I think those are some of the capabilities that we found build that level of comfort and just put enterprises and CIOs really in the driver's seat of how the technology gets deployed and used, and it can then be sort of monitored and built upon, rather than feeling like it's this one-way door where that's incredibly binary.
Now, it's evident from what we've already discussed today that AI brings exciting opportunities and challenges, including security risks and app oversaturation. As we continue to embrace AI in our workplaces, what steps can IT leaders take to mitigate these risks?
Natalie said you shouldn't have an AI strategy or roadmap, and I absolutely agree with that. Anything like that, you'll spend 6 to 12 months working on that strategy and roadmap. That'll be out of date by the time it's published, and it'll just slow you down. You need to get started on this today. But I think it's good to have a bit of an AI vision as an organization. Help you understand how AI is going to help your organization achieve its goals. For example, I know some organizations that are looking at, well, they're exploring this idea of digital twins of people, of physical humans, right? So, going through, every Zoom, Teams call, every email, every chat that some individual's written, every document that they've written, and learning from that person, learning how they make decisions. And so maybe when they're on holidays, an AI makes decisions for them. It approves things that they would otherwise approve in person. Or if the CEO, goes out and gets hit by a bus, that, an AI can make decisions in the same way that CEO made decisions going forward. So that whole question of what's not just the role of AI, but what's the role of a human being within an organization? When do we turn to a machine versus a human to do something? These are questions that we're going to need to answer in the future. So if you can start creating versions of those answers, if you can create that vision, as I said, I sort of call it it's a lighthouse that you're moving towards, basically, right? And it helps with your investment strategy too around AI, that, if this particular AI tool or platform moves you towards that vision, then you invest in it and you integrate it and you do it well. But that means you don't use other AI tools and platforms. It just means they might be more disposable, right? So you put it in, use it for 6 months, get rid of it. Don't worry about the deep integration, et cetera, right? So it helps to drive those investment decisions too. But on a more practical level, something you can do is having the guardrails. We've had security guardrails, we've had lots of technology guardrails that we've used in our organizations in the past. If you can have a set of guardrails that says, if the AI tool or platform or function or service meets these certain security requirements, application requirements, integration requirements, cost requirements, whatever they are, however you set your guardrails up, then just do it, right? Then it doesn't need to go for approval. Just make it happen within the business. If it sits without that, then we'll send it to a committee to make a decision, or it will need further scrutiny. So again, starting with a bit of an AI vision, about how it's going to help your business, but set up some really clear AI guardrails that will help you make better, faster decisions around what you can do with AI today.
And to add to that, I'm a big believer in having an AI strategy and a vision. What I think is impossible to do right now is to have a 10-year, kind of 5-year AI roadmap like we have been able to do with other technologies. I think it's just simply impossible to do that just with how quickly this environment is moving. But to your point, what I'm helping a lot of organizations craft is their AI principles. So very simply, this is having your team come together and decide two things. AI in our business should do this, and these are the areas of AI that we will not pursue. And, organizations like Google have been very forthcoming and very open about how we're building these principles, and you can see them online. A lot of businesses are publicly posting their AI principles, so you could use that in a workshop to have, give that conversation some starting point for you as a CIO if you want to build these guardrails or principles, so to speak. But because the technology is moving so quickly, principles tend to kind of remain, they're values driven. So definitely setting up principles. And then, in the enterprise organization, I'm seeing a lot of people set up governance frameworks. So I really try not to use the word steering committee because I think that's a bit of and it sounds quite very, very focused on governance, but it's basically saying, let's get a group of individuals across the organization, from marketing to legal to policy, to come together and meet regularly. Maybe it's once a month, to say, let's take a look at the influx or the pipeline of AI use cases that are being created across the business. And let's see if that capability actually aligns to our principles. So having some kind of team, and I don't think you need to go out and create something brand new, but in a governance structure that already exists, have a cross-section of people across the business who are looking at what you're building and the pipeline that's coming through, and having those reflected against a set of AI principles. And don't just write them in a document and have them locked up somewhere. Actually, create them and send them across the business and have everybody agree to this is how we want you to be thinking about AI when you're developing new solutions or tools within the business. So kind of two things that I'm seeing happening very practically. Define your principles and have a cross-section of people who are thinking about actually operationalizing those principles. It's no good just to have them sitting in a document somewhere.
Thank you for sharing your strategies. As an IT leader, your strategy is only as successful as your employees' ability and willingness to engage with technology, which leads me to my next question. How can organizations promote adoption among employees?
So I'm going to take a bit of a politician's answer to this one and answer a question that you didn't ask, because I actually think there's a bigger thing going on here. At the moment, like you look at the next generation of employees coming into our business, the millennials, the Gen Zs, etc., and they've got a bit of a bad rap, right? They're considered lazy, they're considered disloyal, they jump from job to job. But it's interesting, when you actually look at some of the data and you actually speak to some of them about it, you start to understand what they're doing and what they're looking for. And ultimately, they will give loyalty to businesses that provide them with new skills. They understand that, unlike sort of my generation that went to university and expected that 3 or 4 year degree to see me through my 50-year career, they understand that they need to be constantly learning. They need new skills all the time. And so they will give loyalty to employers that provide those skills. And so basically, if you want to be an organization that keeps getting better and improves, then you need to be an organization that's really good at giving out new skills, at learning and development and training, etc., versus an organization that tells people what to do, basically treads water, and those employees leave because they're not getting any new skills. Now, that's as relevant, coming back to the actual question, that's as relevant for AI as it is for anything else. Well, we need to be able to constantly educate and teach our staff, our employees, what are the great new AI things? What do you need to do differently to take advantage of AI? What are some new capabilities that you can do to make your job more interesting? What are the skills that are going to make your career better going forward? And if we can start to give those skills, then we're going to attract the right people and we're going to become more successful businesses. Because ultimately, you can look at all the best AI in the world, but every business is about people, right? The organizations that have the best people are the businesses who win.
And Natalie, Rob, how are Google and Canva encouraging internal adoption?
I think it's a myriad of things. Firstly, to absolutely double down on what Tim was describing around training and education. We've placed a huge emphasis on that. So internally, we have an organization called Canva University. And within that, we've developed a really large program of coursework for our team around AI and ML. And it really is around building both the baseline understanding of key concepts in machine learning and large language models, in generative AI, and then also sort of raising that bar. we've seen incredible uptake. So to Tim's point, people are thirsty for it. So much so that actually across APAC, we've now made our introduction to AI course part of our standard onboarding that everyone goes through. And we see that, you give people that entree into AI, they're then self-serving many of the other courses at Canva University, from AI and ML landscape to, we've got one Gen AI 101 and really a range of courses. So that's been key. Another piece has been giving people the freedom to explore and experiment. So I think Natalie made the point earlier, there's a really big difference in the risk profile between what you are providing your customers and what people can explore with internally. And actually acknowledging that and letting people have the freedom to explore tools and use them within their work where that's appropriate. And the final thing we've done, which has been really transformational, is a program which we call Customer Zero, where before anything goes out to our enterprise customers, and this can be often many, many months before products are being developed into the Canva product, we treat ourselves as customer zero, and we really use the capabilities and the functionality in anger for real work. So, truly dog fooding capabilities we want to enable others with, we use them internally, and in many cases, actually, we'll make them the default mode of operational ways of working, sometimes even earlier than's comfortable, because it starts to actually get people understanding what's possible and sort of get them on that journey towards what we'd want to ultimately deliver into the market for our customers.
And I've seen part of the Canva University and the investment that you're making in that program. So it speaks for itself, the fact that, the next generation of tech talent want to come and work for Canva because, there are these significant investments in education at play. There's a couple of other things that I'm seeing in addition to that. Firstly, I'm seeing and encouraging CIOs and tech leaders to think about education from these three lenses: build, borrow, and buy. So build is understanding who are the people in the organization that exist today that we need to build capability for. They're already inside the business. Borrow is where do we go out to market and work with partners to help us get that first use case off the ground, then give us the training wheels to be able to do it ourselves. And then the third category that you can brainstorm with your team is buy. So what are the new capabilities or skills that currently don't exist in the team that we need to go out to market and hire for? As a Google employee, when it comes to the build bucket, every single person, similar to Canva, has to have 101 level AI training. And I think it goes back to the point that I was saying that I think it's a myth that one particular function owns AI. I think of the fastest moving businesses, including Canva, that I've worked with, everybody is required to have a baseline lexicon of AI understanding to be able to articulate the art of the possible, because they are the people that are closest to the business. They're the people that are closest to the customer. And I think the final link, which are the pinnacle of the successful AI businesses, are those that have a very clear place to experiment. So asking your business, or going back to your technology team or business team and saying, where do we send our top talent to experiment with AI? There's no perfect answer, but there has to be an answer. And I'm coining this an AI test kitchen. So and we have this as Google engineers too. Even inside Google, it's a very specific playground with guardrails that has data that we can play with, that has models that have been approved, that have the right access, that there's even budget assigned in some cases for different roles on how much you can use to play with an idea and then spin it up. Obviously, cloud lends itself very nicely to an AI test kitchen because of the ephemeral nature of being able to spin it up and turn it off. But they're really kind of the three ways that I've seen a lot of businesses drive adoption. It's the build, borrow, buy framework. It's everybody having that 101 level of understanding, and the AI test kitchen. And actually, there's one more final piece of research, and that's around just-in-time learning. We're even finding on YouTube that we're seeing like 400% increase in people searching for AI education on YouTube. And I think that really speaks very highly to the point of just-in-time learning. I think gone are the days where you have days and days and days of in-person training. It's people, particularly millennials and Gen Z, they want to know how to do that one thing with that one feature now. They don't want to go and have to, go through days and days of content. So really understanding how do people actually like to learn inside your organization. And then it's mostly going to be, as I'm calling it, just-in-time content. So I realized that was a fourth point that I added to the end there, but I think it's an important one that we're seeing, particularly at Google, in terms of the YouTube learning content and preferences for learning.
Well, I can actually say it's not just millennials and Gen Z. Just last week, I spent a couple of hours watching, I think it was 36 2 or 3 minute videos about a specific tool set. And I just watch a 2-minute video, go to the application, go, oh, this is how I do it. Back to YouTube, watch a video again. It's a really good way of coming up to speed quickly.
Earlier, you shared what AI tools you were loving at the moment. When have you seen AI make a substantial difference in enhancing efficiency, either within your own organization or another enterprise?
2 areas come to mind. One is how we're seeing the Canva product being used. I talked a little earlier about this idea of integrating AI right into the flow of work. And Magic Write was a really good example of that. But there are many others that we're seeing our customers use within Canva. Another one which we partnered on Google on really successfully is in Canva, people are creating all sorts of materials, from marketing materials, presentations and sales decks, etc. And being able to translate those materials directly whilst you're on the page without leaving, using the power of Google Translate, has been incredibly efficient for removing that switching between applications, and ultimately just keeps people in the flow. Another application, which has been an internal one that I was just amazed by, that our team developed, is Canva as a product serves a really vast array of user types. So we have marketing teams using it to produce social media content. We have sales teams producing sales decks and materials. We have HR teams and learning and development teams developing training materials. And each of these audiences have quite different personas. One of the things our team did internally was they actually built a custom AI based on these personas. So as they're developing products for different audiences, they can actually query personas which have been trained based on audiences that will ultimately use these products. And it's been really interesting to see our product teams use it, and then to keep that feedback loop going as we release new capabilities and what works and what doesn't work, and that feedback. And as we develop sort of richer profiles of these audiences, we start to develop a reflection of that in an AI that our teams can query and actually collaborate with.
That's a great use case. And yeah, it has been a pleasure working alongside the Canva team to create some of this, inject some of the AI magic into the Canva suite. And I think even above specifically AI, I think a good question that technology leaders can ask is, where are the repeated decisions at scale, either inside their business or in the customer experience that you're creating? So where are the repeated decisions at scale? They tend to be really great starting points for automation, particularly AI automation. And I know at Google, we're seeing a couple of key categories emerge for the application of AI. Obviously, one of them is around create. So Rob mentioned the use case that we're working on around translate. We're also working to put Imagen right now, which is the text to image generative AI, is part of the Canva experience. So if you want to create a kangaroo on a surfboard surfing at the beach, or if you want to create an image of a unicorn birthday party invitation, we can use Imagen generative technology to support that design experience. Summarization is another really key category that we're seeing, particularly when it comes to customer service. So in banking, so when you call up and you need to ask a question, the person on the other end in the call center, lots of room for automation that they can have a full summary instead of having to go through your history of exactly the types of problems that they need to help you with. We're also seeing another category around discover. as a big AI opportunity. So in working with a large telco where they are looking across, they have a number of different contracts across the globe. So when you go on holidays and your phone clicks to roaming, they have contracts with multiple different people across the globe, and they need to make sure that those contracts are always up to date. So they're using a search or summarization experience or discovery experience across those contracts to make sure that instead of having someone, read them manually, that they are actually compliant across thousands and thousands of pages of PDFs, that, having a large language model do at least the first pass to see if they're compliant. And then I think automation we're seeing a lot too in the retail space, particularly supporting some of that manual tasking that had to be done with tagging new items that had to be put up on websites, or even creating the copy that for new products that would manually have to be done, that is specifically tuned and optimized copy for marketing or AdWords, for example. So there are a couple of key categories there, create, summarize, discover, and automate. But again, I think the really key theme, if you want something practical, which I love doing and providing, is go back to your teams and say, where are the repeated decisions at scale that happen inside the business every single day? That is a really great starting point for understanding the application for AI inside your business. And actually, it might even tell you if it isn't AI too, because although we're all very excited about this technology, sometimes it's not AI that needs to be used to solve these solutions as well.
That's it. It's often actually a combination of AI and RPA or some other automation, right? You just talked about decisions at scale. I talk about soul destroying work, right? Same sort of thing, right? That's, as you say, like I know teams at some organizations, legal teams, highly paid legal teams, right, that are spending weeks scouring through contracts, right, looking for errors, etc. And again, that's where an AI can at least take a first pass. I know organizations that are, one company I spoke to, I think, has 5 or 6 full-time employees whose job it is to prioritize emails or manage inboxes, basically custom inboxes that come in, and they read those emails, they look at the attachments, and they forward them on to the people to act on them. And again, I look at that as relatively soul-destroying work, right? That not much reward in that role. Interestingly, they move it between teams because they know people won't stick around if that's just their job. And that organization is looking at using AI and automation to automate a huge amount of that function at the moment. But where I see the really obvious gain today, I think, is in the developer space, right? I spoke to a CIO a couple of weeks ago who said that using some of the Gen AI tools in their agile teams and their development teams, and he said the words he uses, using these tools conservatively, he's had a 30% productivity increase. And I actually stopped and said, say that again, because I don't think ever in my technology analyst career have I heard someone say that by using a technology conservatively, they've got a 30% productivity increase. Like 30%, that's just mind-blowing, right? So what if you use those tools and those AI capabilities in anger, right? What productivity increase could you be getting there? So there's so many different use cases, but I really like that way that Natalie divided into those 4 different categories.
Thank you for sharing. We're up to our final question before Q&A. Now, there are a lot of AI solutions popping up at the moment, covering a range of different use cases. Tim, for those that have yet to get started, what should they consider when evaluating solutions?
So I think Natalie referred to this earlier on, that these AI tools and platforms and software and clouds, et cetera, and services, they're just another technology-based solution, right? And so we should use all the same decision factors that we have been using in the past to keep our organizations secure and compliant, et cetera. So there's all the questions around, does it meet our architecture requirements? Does it meet our security requirements? Is it a new tool? Does it need to be integrated? What's the training? What's the change management that we're going to need for this? What's the ROI? What does it cost? What's the business case for it? Does it increase our business risk? Does it simplify our tech stack? This is something, obviously, coming back to something I was saying earlier, that we're trying to reduce tech debt too. So how does it help to simplify our organization? I guess the difference of what we're going to have to do with AI is we're going to have to do this much faster than we've ever done it. These can't be 6-month decision projects. This can't be sit down with a committee and work out, in 6, 9, 12 months, which are the vendors we're going to go with. Because as I said, a lot of us are getting these emails, these introductions, on a daily basis from many of these startups and capabilities already. These solutions can help our organizations today, right? If you're not on your AI journey, I actually just say, get on that journey today, ignore everything, just hop on that wagon and go with it. But make sure you have the ability to make those decisions quickly. And that's where those AI guardrails, if you can set them up quickly, it'll help you understand what we can do in a hurry and what are the things that we do need to put, as Natalie said, into those sort of stronger governance committees, etc.
And Natalie, Rob, you've had the really unique advantage of building and deploying AI tools. Are there any lessons learned you can share when considering new AI solutions?
Yeah, definitely. I think although there are a lot of the same questions or frameworks that we can use from the past to assess AI, I think there definitely are a new set of questions that are emerging, particularly when it comes to generative AI. And, I've helped a number of different businesses, including the Canva team, build AI solutions for millions of users. And I think the question that is really important to ask and that I've learned is, as a leadership team, understanding what kind of AI company do you want to become? What is your AI archetype? And is it taker, shaper, or maker? This is a really simple way to think about it. Taker is, do we go out and look at current existing APIs, for example, AI APIs that exist in the market today that we can plug into our everyday experience? And in this case, for one of the projects that we work with Canva on, Google Translate was an example of that. Because the capability existed, there was no point kind of going out and making that new functionality. So that was very much that taker strategy. Shaper is, these are businesses that go out to the industry and say, where are the large language models, either third party or open source, and how do we uniquely add our data and our business logic to those large language models to make them more specific for our business. Typically, you have to have great data. You probably need a little bit more skilling. And then finally, it's maker. So I'm seeing less organizations do this unless they have a specific, uniquely differentiated product strategy. And that is to completely make your own AI solution from scratch. And there are definite reasons why people would do that. Again, very differentiated. It requires kind of PhD level expertise, a significant amount of data, and a significant amount of budget. So I would say really understanding the archetype of what type of technology company that you want to become. Is it that shaper, taker, or maker? And I think I've definitely learned from helping a lot of different businesses is that balancing budget with ambition, I think, is a reality that a lot of businesses very quickly face when they come to building with AI. And what I really loved about working with Rob and the Canva team is that I experienced the Canva team being able to spin up very tight product groups that were able, and teams made up of about 3 or 4 different people that were able to very, very quickly execute, test, get feedback from the Canva users, and then only put in production what was valuable to the user set. So like having a very small, nimble teams that instead of boiling the ocean and proving value, and then kind of moving on and putting that into the deployment workflow, and then having that group of people work on the next set of feature. So they're kind of 2 things that I think a lot of businesses can, I've learnt from deploying AI at scale, is asking the questions like what archetype do you want to be? AI company do you want to become? And having those very fast, nimble teams action that very quickly.
And Rob, how about you?
Totally. Yeah, building on that, it is interesting. I think that archetype and that framework is quite reflective of what we've done internally with maybe a little bit of a twist, which is we've taken, rather than doing that at an organization level and picking a single archetype, we have sort of a three-legged stool where we have three different approaches for different types of AI projects. So there are ones that are absolutely, the first is there's ones that are absolutely core, where we are actually building our own models and investing for the long term. And that is where we have a proprietary advantage, whether it's data or otherwise. And that is, as Natalie was describing, this is PhD level stuff. There is then another leg of the stool, which is partnering with the best third-party models. And our partnership with Google is one really great example of that, where there are capabilities that exist. Often they do need to be shaped, as you were describing, to sort of meet the needs of our users. But there it makes much more sense to adopt that model. And then the third is what we've done is develop a platform as well, so that across visual communication, we actually enable third parties who are developing, and this is many of the startups that people are getting excited about and exploring their tools and their capabilities. We're enabling all those developers to build on our platform, so that if you go into Canva's App Store, you'll actually see that there is just a vast range of creative AI-driven solutions for everything from creating talking avatars to turning your images into artistic sketches and really everything in between. So that when you are communicating visually, you don't have to choose between using a single app but having limited capabilities, or sort of this incredible sprawl that we've been talking about, but rather allowing people to come to one place but still be empowered to use a whole rich ecosystem of tools, and an ecosystem that's really moving faster than any single company could move itself. So, we're seeing, dozens of apps every week being developed, and they're creating all sorts of really catering to all sorts of really niche use cases, or just really broad but incredibly creative uses of this new technology, which has been very exciting to see as well.
Tim, Natalie, Rob, thank you so much. We do have a bit of time for Q&A. I know that Andrew and Josh have been really busy answering most of the questions in the chat. So we've pulled a few questions out to answer now. So let's kick things off with the first question. Buying AI-powered tools, what considerations do I need to look out for in terms of security, trust, and compliance?
I think particularly when it comes to indemnification, that's something that we're seeing as a key consideration set for a lot of businesses when thinking about taking first or third party models from the ecosystem and integrating them into their business. So getting really clear on what is that shared responsibility model, I think is really, really important. Secondly, if you're a consumer-facing application, looking at your current data privacy approaches and principles and making sure that they are up to date and they are including generative AI, the use of generative AI technology as part of those those data policies, I think is really, really important. In terms of security, I think the biggest issue that we've seen across industry, every CIO is telling me this, is that their employees are putting sensitive customer data inside models. And I think it's so important that you definitely have a principle around what technology or what data can and can't go inside specific models. Call that out very, very clearly. It's the number one question that we get asked. And then finally, it's around, I think, data quality. So what happens with machine learning models is that data feeds these machine learning models to create new inputs or outputs. So what happens is that if you're using data that is not complete or is biased in some way already, and you're feeding AI or ML systems with this information, then what happens is you're creating decision engines inside your business based on very poor quality data. So having someone that is really focused on making sure the data sets that are given to the business or the engineering teams who are creating new models has definitely been vetted for bias, quality, completeness. I would say they're probably the kind of three things that are definitely part of the consideration set.
And second question is, do we think of AI-powered tools as cost and time savers, strategic investments, or R&D? And how do we evaluate the business case?
Depending on the AI tool, depends on which one it is. They can be all three. I see a lot of focus with Gen AI because it's focusing on Gen AI is often focused on knowledge workers. A lot of organizations are building business cases on productivity and sort of savings of employees or savings of time. The challenge that I see with many of these business cases, because I help organizations develop a lot of them, is that they build it up and they say, well, over 1,000 people, it's 10 minutes per day, which is a lot of time, etc. But you can't do anything, with that particular time because it's 10 minutes per person per day. So I actually suggest that what organizations should do for their AI business models is build it based on what you'll be able to do better or what you'll be able to do differently with the time saved, right? So if you look at for example, the Canva tools, right? Can you run more campaigns? How many more campaigns? Can you customize campaigns at a faster rate? How will that impact the sales, etc.? These are the sorts of things that I think you should be building your business models and ROI on for AI. It's what you do with that extra time saved, because it will save huge amounts of time. The more you do, the better you do it, the more time you'll save. But the challenge you have with that sort of time save or productivity model is that you don't want that time lost around the water cooler, right? Or more time spent, doing things that don't actually make a difference to the business. So actually build that business case saying we're going to, put in this tool, we're going to use this new service, and by doing that, we'll be able to drive this particular business or customer or some sort of outcome, which is going to make our business better, our customers happier.
Great. And I think we have time for one more question. And this one's all around managing app fragmentation. With 72% concerned about app fragmentation, what are the best practices for integrating AI tools into existing ecosystems without exacerbating this issue?
Work with your partners and your existing vendors just to find out what they've got, right? It's harder, right? If you're a Salesforce, for example, and you have 1,000 new features that you launch every quarter or every 6 months, and 200 of them are AI related, it's hard to get that message across to your customers. So it's up to us to work with our suppliers more effectively. It's up to our suppliers to educate us more effectively and for them to surface those capabilities in the applications. I actually think a lot of the things we want to do with AI, they already exist in our tool set, or they're in the next version, or they're not that far away. So you don't want to go down a big process of integrating a whole new capability in your business and then have one of your existing platforms switch that capability on next quarter. So just make sure that you have those open lines of communication with both your technology providers, the partners, your systems integrators, et cetera, too. And again, I'll put it back on those software companies to make sure that they do a really good job of making sure that their customers are really on top of those great new features and functions and how easy they are to use and what you have to do differently to take advantage of them.
I would add two more perspectives to that. First, is if you're a technology leader managing an AI estate, be really transparent with how you're using AI today, because actually I think a lot of folks in the business might not necessarily know exactly how this technology is being used. So I'm even suggesting, put some budget aside to celebrate or highlight that first really great use case internally of how you're using AI, what you learnt, what you wouldn't do next time, what you would do. So as an AI leader, be very clear and open on how you're using it internally. That's more of a people-focused lens. From a technical lens, I think a lot of technology leaders could definitely get a lot of value around looking at their API management strategy. Earlier I said that, what kind of archetype do you want to be? Do you want to be a taker, shaper, or a maker of API, of AI? Most organizations, at least I'm being exposed with, their first interaction with AI is from an API perspective. It's that taker perspective. So having a very clear API management strategy that sits across your AI, that sits across your tech infrastructure, that gives a management layer to how different parts of the business are calling APIs. Even having a good strategy around this helps with things like chargebacks. I think that's another big question that a lot of IT leaders are asking is, how do we charge different parts of the business? So having someone look at the API management layer and making sure there's a very clear way for the business to be able to securely access ML APIs and plug them into existing solutions internally or external customer experiences safely.
Thank you so much. And that is a wrap. A huge thanks to our brilliant panelists, Natalie Piucco, Tim Sheedy, and Robert Kawalsky. Your insights into the application of AI in the enterprise have been invaluable. We've delved deep into the challenges, but also the amazing opportunities that come with AI innovation in the workplace. Your expert perspectives have certainly given us a lot to think about. And also to our awesome audience, you've been fantastic. We hope you're walking away with a bunch of insightful strategies to really navigate the ever-changing world of AI. Now, before I share some really exciting news with you all, if you're interested in diving into Canva's CIO report, we have shared the link again for you in the chat, or you can simply Google Canva CIO report. In the fast-paced landscape of workplace tools, let's stay focused on the potential for smart, sustainable innovation. And as we're on this mission to really push the boundaries to create more efficient, productive, and creative workplaces, we have something really exciting up our sleeves. And that is Canva's largest event. Canva Create is returning in 2024, and it's going to be bigger than ever. So if you're interested in seeing how Canva can empower your teams to do their best work ever, then join us at Canva Create on May 23rd, 2024. We'll be live for the very first time in LA, or you can watch it from wherever you are online. So make sure you check out canva.com/Canva-create to secure your tickets. And thank you again for joining us today. We're excited to catch up with you at Canva Create in our future events. Until then, have an amazing day. See ya.